We have some breaking news to share with you this morning. Check this out, folks. Filmmaker and Hollywood legend George Lucas is throwing his support behind Walt Disney CEO Bob Iger in that bitter proxy battle between the company and activist investor Nelson Peltz. Lucas, who received 37.1 million Disney shares as part of Disney's $4.05 billion purchase of Lucasfilm back in 2012, is currently the largest individual investor in the company. Multiple sources have confirmed to CNBC. It's not a well-known fact. You can't find this in SEC filings, but Lucas is the largest shareholder. And in a statement provided to CNBC, Lucas wrote, "Creating magic is not for amateurs. When I sold Lucasfilm just over a decade ago, I was delighted to become a Disney shareholder because of my long-term admiration for its iconic brand and Bob Iger's leadership. When Bob recently returned to the company during a difficult time, I was relieved. No one knows Disney better. I remain a significant shareholder because I have full faith and confidence in the power of Disney and Bob's track record of driving long-term value. I have voted all of my shares for Disney's 12 directors and urge other shareholders to do the same." Now, Disney has lined up a number of high-profile endorsements in its battle against Peltz and his firm, Trian Management, from the heirs of Walt Disney and Roy Disney to J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon. But the support from Lucas, that endorsement is key, not only as Disney's largest individual shareholder, also because of his standing in Hollywood. Lucas wrote and created the Star Wars and the Indiana Jones franchises, which are some of the most popular films in history, and he helped pioneer tools like digital film editing and computer-generated imagery. So what he says matters. I think, Joe, it's particularly key that Lucas said he was relieved when Bob Iger came back, and that is why he has remained a significant shareholder. I think that's pretty important in going through this. And again, they've lined up a lot of different endorsements. This has been a very hard-fought battle already. That proxy battle ends on April 3rd. That's when we'll see what happened with all of this. Lucas saying that he has voted all of his shares, and he's recommending that others do the same.
I wonder what he's... There'd be tax implications, I guess, if he sold shares.
Oh, right? Sure.
So that's the reason for. I mean, is he
but
diversified?
If you don't believe, I don't know.
We can what we can glean is that he must be.
I will tell you, multiple sources have confirmed to me that he is the largest shareholder. But you have some pretty significant shareholders that have come through. One of them is Ike Perlmutter, who Trian, I think, has kind of put out and said that Perlmutter, who used to be the chairman at Marvel, there were three big deals that Bob Iger did. Those three huge ones would be.
Seemed like he overpaid, but didn't.
No, $15.5 billion if you combined Pixar. If you and Lucas and Marvel, those three, $15.5 billion. Yesterday, Disney put out a little bit of a peek behind the kimono just in terms of the returns. You usually don't get anything, even from the franchises, that they won't tell you the profitability of these things. But they did go out of their way to say that $15.5 billion that they spent on those three deals were very well made. I think they said they got 3 times the return on the capital they invested for Star Wars and Avengers. 5-fold increases on the capital they invested in the Toy Story franchise. Just pointing out how these things have really been a flywheel, because that has been one of Nelson Peltz's big criticisms, that he overpaid for all of those deals. Those three, they showed you a little bit about how profitable those deals have been for the company.
I remember, and it seemed like Steve Jobs just seemed like he took him to the cleaner with Pixar.
Maureen Powell-Jobs, I think, was the largest individual shareholder at one point. I don't believe she is now, but she owned a very substantial stake, a bigger stake, because of the Pixar investment.
I don't know about Pixar anymore. I think that kind of lost its way.
They've got another Toy Story that's coming out.
They do?
Yeah.
Just don't think of it the same way. I'm not sure that's been... I don't know if anyone could have at this point. It was obviously the groundbreaker in animation back then, but it's had, there are a lot of players.
The other thing that you have, though, is the content that it kicks out for the parks,
right,
and what they're able to pick up and run with those things, too. So, again, this is just the next step in the saga that has become this proxy battle. I think Bob Iger has pulled out all the stops and wants to make sure that shareholders understand his point of view from this. A lot of times you have companies that don't come in and kind of play above the fray on these things. That hasn't been the case here. My guess, I don't know anything, but my supposition would be that Bob Iger came back from retirement for this, probably doesn't want to deal with an activist investor, someone he clearly has not gotten along with, on the board at the same time. Probably wouldn't make it a whole lot of fun.
Right. No, and I'm still working my way through this ESPN piece, man. A lot of all media has some really daunting challenges. They're actually talking about this guy that runs ESPN as a possible successor, not the leading successor to Iger in 25, but someone that you would need to consider. But depending on what happens with ESPN between now and then, that could determine it too, because that's a microcosm of the challenges that streaming presents for everyone.
You said they lost 30 million subscribers?
Something like 30 million, and I think profitability's down. And I mean, ESPN was the crown jewel all along. What do you do with it?
But it is, you're right, it's indicative of the industry at this point.
Right, and we haven't had an update on we don't know the name of it. It'd be nice if you get the name so that we don't have to explain what we're talking about. But for the Fox, ESPN, Warner Brothers sports streaming enterprise, we need a name for it so we can talk about it. But I don't know where I'm sure there's a lot going on behind the scenes right now.
I would imagine.
Yeah.